Hi, it's Lucy, and today I'm here to do my November wrap-up. In the month of November, I finished 9 books, which honestly was a surprise to me. I didn't even realize I had read that many until I went to do this wrap-up and realized I read 9 books. I did 2 reading-ish review vlogs that are both linked down below, and I'll mention them as I talk about the books that I read in them in this wrap-up. But if you want more detailed reviews of those books, then you should check out those reading vlogs. Looking back, even though I did read a good amount of books, quality-wise, this was not a great reading month for me. I feel like this is a whole trend over the whole year, honestly. And if you're interested in any of the specific books I'm going to be talking about, the timestamps and a list of all the books that I'll be talking about are linked down below. So if you want to skip ahead or go back or something for any of the books, then those are available in the description box. Also, my last announcement, I think, for my channel survey, this will be your last chance to complete it. I will be closing it because I'm going to be doing a live show on December 21st at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I kind of go over the answers of my channel survey, like what you guys said and my opinions on your opinions, I guess. Also, I will be taking questions for a Q&A also during that live show. So if you have any questions that you want me to answer during the live show, leave them down below. Also, my last announcement kind of thing, I made an Instagram. It was for one of the reading vlogs that I did, but now I just have an Instagram, or a bookstagram. The theme of my bookstagram is my cat, so if you want pictures of cats and books, it's just one cat. I only have one cat, but if you want pictures of my one cat and books, then you should check out my Instagram. It's lucie.reads. LucieReads without a period was taken, so it's Lucie.reads, and that'll be linked down below, and it'll be linked down below in all of my future videos, so that's out of the way. Now let's get into the books that I read in the month of November. The first book that I finished was Curtsies and Conspiracies by Gail Carriger. This is the second book in the Finishing School series, which is a prequel series to the Parasol Protectorate series, also by Gail Carriger. And these series are set in a steampunk type world that also has supernatural creatures. I believe some of the characters from the Parasol Protectorate series make appearances in this series, but I don't know because I've never read that series, so I don't know the characters. And in this series, the Finishing School series, we follow a girl named Sophronia, who is kind of like a girl who doesn't follow the rules. Her parents are really tired of her, so she's sent to finishing school. But unbeknownst to her parents, this finishing school is not like other ones, and this one is actually preparing the girls who are students to become spies. So based on the description, I think if you've read the Ally Carter's Gallagher Girl series, you will really like the series. It is very similar, but it does have the supernatural twist and the steampunk twist. The school is actually on an airship, which is brought up a lot in the plot, and that's part of the steampunkiness because it's steam powered, and it's just a lot of cool, fun stuff. The supernatural creatures are werewolves and vampires. As far as I know, those are the only ones that are mentioned, and they have something called the Ether, which I think is a steampunk thing, because in the only other steampunk series I've read, that was also a big thing, and that's where magic kind of is, but there's not so much magic in this series. Nobody's casting spells or anything. In this book, the second book, we are introduced to a school of boys who are being taught to be evil geniuses, and they are incorporated into the story. So since this is the second book in the series, I can't give you detailed plot points or anything, but I enjoyed continuing to read about Sophronia's adventures at finishing school. I enjoyed hearing of Sophronia's intelligence and her actually using that. I feel like it's so common where in YA books the characters are intelligent and then they lack entirely any common sense. But Sophronia seems to actually be intelligent, so I like that. And I also enjoyed the varying cast of characters. We meet Sophronia's dorm mates, friends, and the other girls at the school, and the teachers, and all of those were interesting and varied. They all have different personalities, and the ones that need to be fleshed out, I don't think they were super well fleshed out, but it really doesn't matter because it's just a fun adventure. My only real issue in the series in this book is Sophronia is forming a friendship relationship with another character who is marginalized not only by race, but also by class. The other character is named Soap, which I feel is a whole other thing, but he works in the coal area of the ship. I'm not sure what that's called. I forgot. The undercarriage. He helps power the ship, but he's not an engineer. He works with the people who shovel the coal into the ovens and things. The relationship between him and Sophronia felt really off to me because it really seems like he worships her, and it just has that whole race and class vibe. He is very clearly dark-skinned because it is mentioned very often that he blends in with the soot. I don't know what the implications there are. Thought I'd mention that. A very small part of the book, and Soap as a character is, like, I like him as a character. I think his character is well written, except for that relationship and possibly that visual description. So I just wanted to put that out there. But overall, I gave this book 3.5 stars, and I'll be continuing in the series. Slay by Brittney Morris. This follows 17-year-old Kira, who is an honor student, a math tutor, and one of the only Black kids at her private school. She's also the creator of a Black Panther-inspired, massively multiplayer online role-playing card game, that was a mouthful, called Slay, that's meant to be an oasis for Black gamers to be themselves and play a game that's kind of inspired by Black culture. Unfortunately, the game gets into hot water after there is an incident where someone is killed over an in-game dispute. So Kira has to figure out what to do after this happens and after her game is getting a lot of this negative attention. I read this in my Reading Black Authors vlog part 2 or volume 2. So if you want a more detailed review and more thoughts of me that I had while I was reading this, then you should check that out. I'm going to try and be brief there because I think I did a pretty good job of summarizing it in that video. The one thing I will say though is I ended up downgrading my star rating from what I said in that video. I think I gave it 3.5 stars in that video, and now it is a 3-star book because after thinking it over even more and just thinking about my enjoyment level of the book even, I realized it was more of a 3 stars. Or if for some reason you don't want to check out that video, I also did a long detailed Goodreads review. Check out either of those if you want a more detailed review. But basically I really wanted to love this, but unfortunately I just didn't. I felt like the basis of this book is this game Slay. Everything going on in this book is about Slay, but I just found it so unbelievable that a 17-year-old created an entire massively multiplayer game that can host hundreds of thousands of people. Just the idea of building a video game, a virtual reality video game, because it turns out, I guess all the video games in this are virtual reality, I'm not sure, that can host thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, just was so off to me, and it really colored my reading. It would be incredibly hard for anyone of any age to build a game like that by themselves in the short amount of time that she would have had to have done it. So I just couldn't get past that, and it just stayed in my head the entire time I was reading it, which really made me not enjoy reading it as much. And also, I really didn't like the main character. I thought she was not a good person most of the time. I did like some of the topics that the book discussed, such as like gaming while Black, which was a thing in here obviously because this game was made as like an oasis for Black people, like I mentioned. There's a discussion of respectability to politics that I really enjoyed. I also like that this showed an abusive relationship, but I don't think that this was handled as well as it could have been. So I was disappointed in that as well. Overall, if you're a video game lover and not as nitpicky as me, then you might enjoy this. For me, I didn't love it. And to continue on this trend of me not loving books, the next book I'm going to be talking about is Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. This follows 3 girls on the island of Sawkill Rock, where teenage girls have been going missing for years, and people seem really unconcerned. The 3 main character stories come together as a mystery unravels, and they're trying to figure out what's happening. It's been a while since I've had such a weird feeling about a book, because basically, while I can recognize that this wasn't a bad book, I did not enjoy it at all. Like, I just didn't like it. I actually enjoyed the writing style, which is the biggest complaint that I've seen. I tend to enjoy flowery, like almost over-descriptive writing, so it didn't bother me. My biggest issue, I guess, were the characters, and I just didn't like them. I didn't like the story. I didn't like where it was going. I just didn't like it. Only one of the characters seemed to have any sense at all, and nobody ever listened to her until it was basically too late. And that character was asexual and Black. So some diversity in the cast. The other 2 characters are women who like women. I'm like, what word am I looking for? And they are in an FF romance, which I hated. I hated that romance. It was completely unbelievable to me. I didn't understand why we were trying to make it a thing. Let's not make fetch happen. I feel like that was my biggest issue, that romance, because I just did not believe that after what one of the characters did, that the other character would be like, whatever, let's still date. Like, I love you. What? And also, it was kind of insta-lovey, their romance as well. But mostly, I just hated that one character did something and the other character was like, oh well, let's just keep going. Like, it didn't make sense. So yeah, I gave this 2.5 stars. I didn't like it. I would not recommend it. This is also touted as like some kind of feminist book or whatever. And yeah, the diversity is nice, but I didn't really see Like, there were some things that I could tell were meant to be like feminist passages, but I was just so annoyed throughout the whole book that I just didn't really see it. Like, there are better books, there are better YA books with feminist themes and things, and this one mostly was just like, men suck. And like, yeah, I agree, but I feel like that could have been done in a better way. The Little Book of Hygge by Meik Wiking. This is a self-help book that goes over the Danish concept of Hygge and why that might be the reason that Danish people, or part of the reason that Danish people are the happiest people of the world. Not a whole lot to say about this. I gave it 3.5 stars. I had a nice time reading this and learning about Hygge. I've been saying it wrong this whole time also. I enjoyed reading this. This book had a lot of little recipes and things, or just like things you can do to make your life a little more Hygge, and I appreciated that. The Good Luck Girls by Charlotte Nicole Davis. I also read this in my Reading Black Authors vlog, so once again, for a more detailed review, check that video out. This is set in a fantasy world that does have a little bit of magic and like paranormal stuff going on, and we follow 5 girls who all lived and worked at a welcome house, which is kind of like a brothel, and the girls who work at the welcome houses are called Good Luck Girls because it's considered that they have good luck, because since they work there, they're like taken care of, like they're able to go to the doctor and see a dentist and like are fed. And since they work there, they are marked with magical favors that are essentially permanent tattoos that go along their face and that like grow and change with them as they grow up, and also might glow, I'm not really sure, and also they can't cover them up or else it will cause them immense pain after too long. The book takes off after Clementine, who is the sister of our main protagonist, Aster, accidentally kills her first customer. So it leads to her and her sister and 3 other girls going on the run to try and like free themselves. They end up chasing this like mythical person who like is only heard of in stories, but they're trying to see if she's real. I really liked this. I was super engaged while I was reading it, and I loved following these girls while they were on the run. This is marketed as a cross between The Handmaid's Tale and Westworld, and this almost made me want to read Westworld because I really like the Western aspect of this book. We get to see the girls kind of like do holdups, if that makes sense, where they get like rich businessmen, like they lure them out and then they like rob them. And I just love the old Western vibes of this story. I really enjoyed seeing the characters come into their own because they grow and change now that they have this chance to be away from the welcome house, and like they really get to think about what they want and like what they are really like away from that setting. And I really loved seeing them do that and them grow closer as a group of people. And I just really enjoyed reading this. House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne Jones. This is the 3rd book in the Howl's Moving Castle series, which is a companion series. So the books are loosely connected and we see characters from the 1st book in the 2nd and 3rd book. I don't think we saw characters from the 2nd book in this book, but I'm not sure, because I really don't remember that. This book follows Charmaine Baker, who is charged with watching her great uncle's house. And once she gets there, she realizes she's way in over her head. The house actually can bend space and time because the one door inside there that she thought led to the bedroom actually can lead to as many rooms as you want. So it's super fun, and she also encounters an apprentice who comes on the wrong day. She manages to anger a small clan of blue creatures, and she somehow gets caught up in the king's search for the elf gift. I like this much better than the 2nd one, and I think if you enjoyed Howl's Moving Castle, you will enjoy this. I think this manages to capture like that magical like fairy tale vibe of Howl's Moving Castle much better than the 2nd one, even though this was written I think 10 years after the first 2. We also do get to see Howl, Sophie, and Calcifer from the 1st book. They do make an appearance in here. Howl's still a big baby, literally. I loved following Charmaine, and I thought she was so funny. She's all of us who are just trying to read our damn book. And she was just so fun to read about. I really enjoyed her character. I loved hearing about the house, and I'm always fascinated by things that are like bigger on the inside. So I liked hearing about all the rooms and things that they encountered, all the spells, all the books that she like picks up and sees. The small blue creatures are called kobolds, and it's so funny, that whole thing. And also I was imagining them as Winslow from Cat Dog, like they were all just a group of Winslows from Cat Dog. That's what I imagined in my head, in case you were wondering. This was just such a fun and refreshing read, and I recommend it if you're looking for like a fairy tale vibe. If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I did a video where I tried to become Books and Lala, and I read this for that video. So once again, detailed review, check out that video. This follows Oliver Marks on the day that he is released after spending 10 years in prison for a murder he may or may not have committed. On this day, the police officer who put him in jail comes and is like, can you tell me the real story? And he decides to tell him the real story, and we're following along with that story. And we find out exactly what happened, what led to the events that happened, and whether or not he did it, And along with this has a close-knit group of people, as Oliver and the 6 other people in his class are the only drama seniors at the conservatory that they go to. I was definitely engaged in the story. I gave this 3.5 stars. The whole atmosphere and the mystery of the book was definitely the selling point of the book, and I enjoyed that part. The most popular complaint I have heard of this book, it's not a series, is that it's pretentious. All of the characters are constantly quoting Shakespeare. They use it in casual conversation. Just the way that everyone talks is really in a lofty tone of voice. And so I can definitely see how it was pretentious. I didn't mind really that much because I knew it going in, and like I said before, I do enjoy more flowery writing, so that didn't bother me, and I felt like that it helped with the whole atmosphere and closeness of the book, that all these characters talk in a way not only them can understand, but in a way that really shows off how close they are, I guess. My biggest problem is that I just was not surprised by anything. This is a mystery book. I kind of guessed what happened. There was only one part that I didn't guess, but I did not like that part. Not because I didn't guess it, but because it was stupid. I think Shakespeare lovers will at least enjoy the work that M.L. Rio did to put this together. The author's note talks about how much she researched and everything about Shakespeare. The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the second book in the Raven Cycle Quartet. This is backwards. The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the second book in the Raven Cycle Quartet. I also read this for the Becoming Books and Lala video, so check out that video. Once again, the atmosphere of this series is on point. I can't remember what I didn't like about the first book. I think it was just that I was confused. I was less confused in this book just because I think I'm more used to the writing style, more used to what's going on. There's still a lot of stuff that's unexplained, or maybe it was less confusing because I was reading it physically this time, and the first book I listened to the audiobook, not sure. But yeah, definitely less confusing for me. This follows more of Ronan. This is Ronan. We learn more about his backstory, and I found that really intriguing. I thought hearing that after I read the first book, I was like, who cares? But now I can see it, I get why we needed more of his backstory. So I enjoyed that. I just wasn't a huge fan of the main characters' interactions with each other. There's a lot of conversations, and they fight with each other, and just stuff that happens that I was just not interested in. I just wanted to hear more about the search for the ley lines and things like that. I don't care as much about their romantic interests or anything. Also, Ronan likes boys. I probably didn't know that because I have avoided most reviews of this series or anything, so that's probably on me, but if you're not avoiding them, then yeah, that's a good fact to know. I thought the ending of this, I felt right after I finished reading it, I was like, oh my god, the ending's so good, I have to read the third book. Now, I still want to read the third book, but that ending really did come out of left field, so I don't know how I feel about it anymore, but yeah, overall I gave this 3.5 stars. And the last book that I read was Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. This follows Richard Mayhew, who after a random act of kindness is unwillingly brought into the world of London Below, which is exactly as it sounds. A city that exists below London of people who have been forgotten or unknown. And the city has their own way of life, and there's some magic involved and stuff. This is urban fantasy, I think. I really enjoyed the story, and the world that Gaiman builds is definitely more plot focused, and part of the plot is just discovering the world. You almost feel like the world is real, maybe under London, there is a whole city of people who have just been forgotten. Richard wasn't the most interesting main character, but I didn't mind. The only problem that I had, small problem, but I noticed it and it bothered me, was the not quite romance between him and another character, Dor. I don't know if I'm just reading into it, but as far as I could tell, Dor is definitely on the young side. I thought she was a teenager, but she could have been maybe early 20s, at the max. But Richard is a grown man. The relationship, it seemed to me, that they should have had, and they mostly had, was more familial, familial. The relationship they should have had, and what it seemed to me that they did have, was more familial, but there were times where Richard would make a comment about hugging her, like whether, like I think there was something, I can't think of an exact quote, about like whether he should kiss her or do something. Like there was like a couple instances where it seemed like it was heading in a more romantic direction. I didn't like that. Nothing actually happened, but I thought I would point it out because I didn't like it. But otherwise, the rest of the story I did really enjoy, and that was such a small part. It's just something that I wanted to point out. Otherwise, the quality of the writing and, like I mentioned, the world are worth reading this book by far. I don't know if this would be my favorite Gaiman, but yeah, this is definitely in the top half of the Neil Gaiman that I've read. One day I will do a Neil Gaiman ranking, I swear. I really enjoyed this and would recommend it. So those are all the books that I read in the month of November. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any opinions about any of the books that I mentioned, please be sure to leave it in the comments down below. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter. Those are the only things. Follow me on those platforms. Links are down below. What else is there to say? Answer my channel survey. Leave me a question for the Q&A. And I think that's it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell if you haven't done that already. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.